It weighs 5 pounds unloaded, but the real weight is the sheer psychological terror delivered by its 62 NATO round. This weapon is an icon of the Cold War, a paradox built from sheer simplicity and brutal efficiency. And it exists because of one disastrous mistake the US made 70 years ago. You are looking at the PTR GIR 100. This is not just a faithful recreation of the storied Heckler & Koch G3. It is a meticulously crafted historical artifact built right here in the United States, specifically configured to mimic the robust and distinct appearance of the Swedish Ak4 battle rifle. It stands as a monument to mechanical brilliance forged in the fires of ideological conflict, a rifle that screams Cold War nostalgia from every angle of its parkerized steel chassis. The very choice to recreate the G3 platform is a technical statement. While the world largely moved toward the lighter, faster 5.6mm NATO cartridge, the G3, and thus the GIR 100, retains the formidable power of the 6.2 by 51mm NATO round. This cartridge is not subtle. It was designed to maintain combat effectiveness at ranges exceeding 600 meters and deliver maximum terminal energy, prioritizing penetration over manageable recoil. In the hands of NATO forces and their allies across 7 decades, the G3 platform has been defined by its reliability and its absolute refusal to be deterred by cover or distance. But the story of the GIR 100 is deeper than caliber. It is intrinsically tied to its operating system, the legendary roller-delayed blowback mechanism. Forget the gas-operated rotary bolts of the M16 or the AK-47. This system is a mechanical marvel of elegant simplicity. When the round is fired, the expanding gases push the case backward, applying force against the bolt head. Instead of immediately unlocking, the bolt head drives a set of small steel rollers outward into recesses in the receiver trunnion, effectively locking the bolt closed. As the pressure builds, these rollers are forced inward, pressing against an angled piece called the locking piece. This angular relationship is critical. It creates a mechanical disadvantage, delaying the rearward movement of the heavy bolt carrier just long enough for the dangerous and high chamber pressures, often peaking between 50,000 and 60,000 psi, to drop to safe levels. The locking piece then accelerates the bolt carrier rearward at a phenomenal rate, extracting the spent casing. This mechanism is the core strength and weakness of the G3 lineage. Its advantage is profound. The system eliminates the need for complex gas ports, pistons, or rods. This results in far fewer points of failure, incredible reliability in adverse conditions, and a relatively cleaner running action compared to direct impingement or long-stroke piston systems. The PTR GIR 100 faithfully preserves this mechanism, guaranteeing the brutal simplicity that made the original G3 a global success. However, the cost of this reliability is apparent in 2 key areas. First, felt recoil in 62 NATO is significant, despite the heavy mass of the bolt carrier assembly designed to mitigate it. Second, and perhaps more famously, is the fate of the brass. To ensure smooth operation under extremely high pressures, the G3 chamber must be fluted. These flutes allow gas to flow backward, essentially floating the casing slightly and preventing it from tightly adhering to the chamber walls. While effective for reliability, this process leaves distinct blackened score marks on the brass, rendering it almost universally useless for reloaders. This rifle devours and destroys spent casings with mechanical prejudice. The aesthetics of the GIR 100 immediately transport the user back to the high tension of the 1960s. The traditional black oxide or phosphate treatment gives way to a practical, matte parkerized finish. But what truly defines this rifle is its furniture: the period-correct green polymer handguard, pistol grip, and stock. PTR sources these materials, and they are openly specified as being rated NRA. This is an essential detail. It means the parts are mechanically sound, no corrosion or damage that affects function, but they show minor wear, handling marks, and color variations. The green components often display different shades, a patchwork of Cold War history that enthusiasts crave. It rejects the sterile, pristine look of a modern firearm, embracing the rugged utility of a tool that was expected to function reliably through decades of NATO exercises and standby readiness. The specific choice to replicate the Swedish Ak4 is significant. When Germany adopted the G3 in 1959, Sweden followed suit quickly, licensing and manufacturing the weapon as the Automat Carbine 4, or AK4, starting production in 1965. The AK-46 became the primary service rifle for Swedish forces for decades. The GIR 100 honors this variant with its specific barrel profile, an 18-inch tapered barrel. This length strikes a critical balance, maintaining excellent velocity for the 62 round while improving maneuverability compared to the 20-inch barrels often seen on earlier German variants. Furthermore, the manual of arms is preserved through the traditional stamped steel SEF lower receiver. SEF stands for Sicher, Einzelfeuer, Feuerstoß, safe, single-fire, burst, although on semi-automatic versions like the GIR 100, the functionality is restricted to safe and semi, often marking the lower as SCF for historical continuity. This steel lower is heavy, durable, and provides the familiar ergonomics that defined the G3 platform globally, contrasting sharply with the lightweight polymer lowers found on more modern successors. One key feature that separates the GIR 100 from its sibling, the GIR 101, is the absence of a permanently welded top optics rail. This seemingly minor detail is profoundly important to collectors and traditionalists. The original G3 architecture relied on a complex and often debated claw mount system to attach optics. By leaving the receiver smooth, the GIR 100 allows the operator to use these original-style claw mounts or carry handles, preserving both the historical authenticity and the specific sight picture known to generations of soldiers. Welding a modern Picatinny rail onto the receiver fundamentally alters the rifle's silhouette and historical function. The GR 100 avoids this modernization, insisting on fidelity to the 1960s standard. To appreciate the G3 lineage, we must step back to its controversial origins. The roller-delayed system was not German, it was Spanish. After World War II, engineers from the German firm Mauser, prohibited from developing military arms, migrated to Spain. Under the Spanish State Research Organization, CETME, Center for Technical Studies of Special Materials, they perfected a derivative of the late-war STG-45M prototype. This resulted in the CETME Model A and later the Model B. When West Germany began rearming in the 1950s, their first choice was the Belgian FANAL, designated the G1. However, the Belgians refused to grant Germany the license to manufacture the weapon domestically. This refusal proved to be one of the most consequential strategic missteps of the Cold War. Germany, desperate for domestic arms production capability, turned to Spain and the CETME design. Heckler & Koch refined the design, making it simpler, more robust, and adapting it to the NATO standard 6.52 by 51 mm cartridge, a cartridge that was, ironically, imposed upon NATO by the S. Despite intense European resistance to move away from the lighter, more controllable 92 mm Kurds and similar intermediate cartridges, the final German rifle, the G3, was born. It was instantly proprietary, modular, and infinitely licensable. The result was a cascade of international adoption. The G3 became the weapon of choice for countries like Portugal, Norway, Turkey, Iran, and dozens more. Its success wasn't just technical, it was geopolitical. Heckler & Koch proved to be exceptionally adept at licensing production, ensuring that even developing nations could manufacture the G3 locally, cementing its global footprint far wider than the FNAL or the early M14. The sheer number of nations fielding some version of the G3, over 70, means the weapon has seen action in virtually every low and high-intensity conflict since the Vietnam era. The PTR GIR 100, therefore, is not merely a modern commercial rifle. It is an accessible link to this profound legacy. It requires the shooter to embrace the idiosyncrasies of Cold War design. The heavy charging handle, often called the slap, where the user cycles the handle and then manually slaps it down to engage the bolt, is a distinct ritual. The weight distribution is biased toward the front, a consequence of the heavy barrel and trunnion assembly. It is not an ergonomic darling by 21st century standards, but it delivers the unparalleled feeling of raw mechanical reliability. When considering its modern role, the GIR 100 excels as a designated marksman platform or a heavy battle rifle, while 62 NATO generates substantial heat and recoil. The G3 architecture is inherently accurate, largely due to its free-floating barrel, a surprising feature for such an early stamped receiver design. The barrel is pinned only to the trunnion and does not contact the handguard, minimizing harmonic interference and maximizing potential accuracy, especially when using an 18-inch tapered configuration like the AK4 model. This rifle forces a return to fundamentals. There are no adjustable gas systems, no complex buffer weights, and minimal polymer enhancements outside of the furniture. The reliability rests solely on the precise relationship between the rollers, the locking piece, and the immense spring tension. It is a testament to the engineering principle that robust, oversized components often outperform delicate, complex systems when facing the harsh realities of battlefield use. The parkerized finish isn't just aesthetic. It's a manganese or zinc phosphate coating designed to absorb oil and resist corrosion in damp, cold environments, exactly what the Swedish military required in their challenging operational areas. Every aesthetic detail of the GIR 100 reinforces its identity as a faithful anachronism. The mild wear on the NRA good green furniture, the rigidity of the steel lower, and the exposed nature of the receiver top waiting for a specific type of period-correct mount all contribute to the narrative. It's a firearm that demands respect for its power and recognition of its historical significance, operating outside the realm of modern lightweight tactical trends. We have spent our time today honoring the 62 NATO Behemoth, a rifle designed to destroy infrastructure and ensure deep penetration at maximum range. We have explored the ingenious brute force of the roller-delayed system and the specific, rugged demands of the Swedish AK4 configuration it perfectly emulates. But the story of the roller-delayed blowback system doesn't end with this heavy battle rifle. What happens when we take this principle, shrink it down to a submachine gun caliber, swap out the steel for advanced polymers, and create a system that prioritizes speed and suppressive fire over brute stopping power? Next time, we tear down the single most famous submachine gun in history, a descendant of the G3 that shares core mechanisms with this monster, but which completely redefined close-quarters combat for special operations forces worldwide. Prepare for the silent revolution.